We go.
All right. We are live. Welcome, everybody, to our Tuesday night podcast. We are not your ordinary church. My name is Jordan. I'll host tonight. And as always, this is Pastor Ford, the answer man.
Hello. Good to see everyone.
We are glad you guys are joining us tonight. Before we get started, we just want to say last podcast was it was good. We do welcome everybody's questions, but we just want to try and keep things on track. And so the purpose for this podcast, obviously, is we are not your ordinary church. And if we're honest, the reason why we're here is for people's salvation. So we are specifically aimed at helping people, and especially newer people. We welcome the questions of everybody. Last week, the questions themselves were not bad, but they just seemed to kind of drift off topic a little bit. And so we want to try and stay on topic tonight. So if you can keep your questions during the podcast, please keep your questions on topic. Try to deal with the things we are talking about. You can ask any question you want on topic. And so we're gonna move forward with that.
Off topic. We'll just look at them at the end.
Yeah. So I was gonna say at the end we can field questions. If you have questions that are off topic, save them, and then towards the end we'll give you guys an opportunity to field those in, and we will try to make time at the end, basically the last like 15 minutes of the podcast or so, to answer questions like that. So
what I was thinking is just they could actually put the question in the chat.
Okay.
At any time, and then that way we'll just go through.
Okay. Yeah, and I'll try to keep track of those questions. Don't take it personally if we don't answer your question. I'm not even going to mention the question if it's off topic. I'll just try to mark it down, and we will try to get to everybody's questions before the podcast is out. So, one more message before we start. If you're liking and subscribing, please don't like unless you actually like the video. So, Francois, unlike, and then think about the podcast, and then like again. Okay, so we actually don't really get a lot of feedback for these podcasts. Personally, I have people come in and say, the podcasts are good, but we really do want genuine feedback on how these are going. And so we're not out here for views. We're out here to help people. We really want to know that what we're doing is helping. And so if you guys can let us know, and if you like it, please let it be a genuine like. Okay, all right, that's enough of our clarity in the beginning. Let's get started. Tonight we're talking about personality. This is a spin-off of some questions that were asked last week, and very inspiring subject, obviously. And so we're going to talk about personality: permanent or pliable? ? So let's start right away by talking about a statement you made last week, and it was in answer to a question that was asked by Kara and from Tucson, and she asked the question. Actually, I won't even say the question yet, but you made the statement, and I want you to qualify the statement or tell us what you mean by it. You said, "I don't necessarily believe in personality," and I want to know what you mean by that, and what is the problem with personality? Why is there a need to believe or not believe in personality?
Well, I have thought about it since then. That was a kind of the short, quick answer. But what I mean, really, to clarify that, is not that I don't believe there's a such thing as personality. I think that we over-define what personality is. It's too broad of a subject in our thinking than what it really is. And I can kind of settle, I think, I can settle this issue with two words. So if personality is who we are, as a person, that's what we mean. This is who I am. This is my personality. This is who I am. Two words: personality disorder. What does that mean then? What does that mean? That you're just a disorder.
Yeah.
You as a human being, you're just a disorder.
Yeah.
So that's what I mean by that. Because obviously, if you have a personality disorder, then that means that that's something wrong.
Yeah.
And so if it's just who you are, well, then you are just screwed, because you are a walking personality disorder.
What is a personality disorder? I'm like the reason I'm asking is because could it be, and this is totally just hypothetical for the sake of what you're saying right now, but what could it be that man is labeling personality disorders, and what you actually have is what God meant to be?
Well, when you talk about personality disorders, you're usually talking about it. And again, let's just right away. I'm not even pretending to be, a
Yeah.
doctor or a psychologist or anything like that. But the idea, and where I'm going to, where what I'm thinking of when I think about this is the idea that a personality disorder is basically it's in context of greater society, what's considered to be normal.
Mhm.
And so that's the idea. So that's why you can't just go with personality is who I am, because what really is personality is what you become. It's what you are becoming, how you are tailoring your life based on your life experiences.
Mhm. So you also made this statement about, or you talked about in reference to not believing in personality. You mentioned predisposition. What is a predisposition?
Yeah, so that's what I was getting at. When that is in my opinion, I think that's the proper description of personality, predisposition. Because if you think about it, you look at these personality tests, and they're based on attributes. Whether you're an emotional person or more of an intellectual person, whether you are more considering or judging, you have all these different sorts of attributes. I think it's up to like 8 different attributes now, I think is kind of most personality tests, if I remember correctly. And that idea is to tell you where you classify, okay, in terms of your disposition, okay, which I'm calling predisposition. And so that's the idea, is the idea of predisposition is your kind of programmed disposition. And some of that comes from birth. You see that, we talked about that last week at little kids, how you can have even your twins are different.
Yeah.
They have different personalities. They have different dispositions. They have different predispositions. And everybody is like that. And that covers a lot of ground.
So give me, I mean, kind of make this really super practical. Like, give me an example of a predisposition or a personality trait, just so we can all know what we're exactly talking about.
Okay, so the idea, one of the personality traits, emotional versus intellectual,
Mhm.
that and then again, the idea is predisposition. Not that you cannot, not if you're an emotional person, if you have an emotional personality, that you cannot become an intellectual individual. That's not the case. It's just that you have to try harder
Right.
than somebody who's not, and vice versa, of course. And so that's a good example right there. Is that, like in my case, like what we put on the thumbnail, of
Yes, let's talk about this
you know.
thumbnail.
At least it's not naked men in the gym
Yes.
anymore.
We have a lot of fun making these thumbnails lately.
Yeah, the
Goodness.
first version of, I didn't even recognize it, but the first version of the thumbnail was me with the Matrix stuff to be sort of representing the intellectual side. And then the other one was supposed to be Jordan's side of being, weightlifting, more physical sports, that kind of a thing. And so it was a picture of guys, with no shirts on, ripped, climbing ropes. And so I was like, yeah, I'm okay with that. It's fine. And then Jordan says, so is that what I'm thinking about, is guys half naked climbing ropes? It's like, I didn't really think of it that way.
Yeah. That was my first thought.
I was originally, actually, that was our second one. The first one was going to be just static.
Oh, gosh.
And I thought,
I would have preferred the static.
well, and Mariah said, so Jordan doesn't think, why is Jordan the stupid one? And I was like, no, that's not the point either. I wasn't trying to communicate the stupid one. It was more just for a joke. 'Cause
Oh,
you're
goodness.
the casual,
Yeah.
your hands, arms back, or anything. But that's the idea. And so you've got that, is that for me, sports, that's something I've got to try at.
Yeah.
And it's not, and it's, again, going into this, and I want to try to keep from meandering too much, but when I was a kid, it was simply, my exposure to sports was very minimal because my dad wasn't into sports.
Mm-hmm.
And so, but my brother became really heavy into sports, because when we both started baseball, he was 8 and I was 10. And so I went from 10 rookies. Finally getting a hang of the game, I get bumped up to minors. Well, my brother gets to stay in rookies and do another year because I'm too old. And then he bumps up. I'm trying to remember how this works. He bumps up, and then the next year I'm really starting to get a hang of the game, and then I go to majors, and then I just get clobbered because I'm just way you're supposed to have 5 years by the time you get to majors, and I only had 3, and so I was like, screw this, I don't want to do this. And then my brother continued on. He went into ponies, and he continued to go on, and so both of us in the same house, the same dad, but he got exposed earlier to sports, and then he became super into sports. But I went down the road of more the thinking stuff, and and that's because my dad was more like that, and so it was easier for me to go that way. And so you can see, I can see anyway, in me and my brother, the differences between me and my brother, because now my brother today he's a network, he installs network cabling and does data stuff. And so he's not just he didn't become a football player, a baseball player or something. He just went off and did his his thinking and stuff like that was more in his work, because he loves sports. He still loves to play sports, but his work became the same kind of work as the kind of work that I would do. It's more, so it's more along the same kind of thinking lines as far as that goes. And so that's what I'm talking about when I talk about the issues of personality, is what is your sort of predisposition, your inclination, and that's why I say a lot of that really is how we've been going through life, how life has been developing for us.
Right. Actually, it's a very related question. We're going to talk a little bit more about this later, but Brittany Miner's asking, so does how you were raised mainly influence your personality?
No, I don't. That's what I'm saying. I don't think so. Because especially for my brother was complete opposite.
Yeah.
My dad was not into sports. We never did much with sports. My dad never even went to our games. And so it was mostly my mom who was the one who kind of spearheaded us being involved in any kind of sports whatsoever. And then what's funny is okay, maybe I need to backtrack a bit on this, because it isn't so much how you were raised, but it is how you responded to how you were being raised. So in other words, it is how you were raised, but not how you were trained by the people around you, but how you grew up and how you began to connect in the world around you. I would say that that's probably a better way to describe how that the effects on your personality have to do with the connections that you make growing up, and the influence those things have on your life when you're younger.
So how you were
they begin to
influenced,
develop.
probably
So
more
influence is probably a better way of describing it, but I would say it's at the younger years.
Yeah.
Because I was thinking about this when I was thinking about Riley. Talking about the idea of personality.
Yeah. Riley's my daughter, by the way.
Yeah, because Riley she's 5 now, right?
She's 6.
6. Okay. So, but when Riley was like 3 or 4 years old, she was really super quiet.
Yeah.
Really, really super quiet, to the point, and I mentioned this, I think, in our last podcast, that I was thinking, man, is there something wrong with her? She seems to be like in her own head, and thinking, she doesn't, she hardly says anything, hardly talks, and then all of a sudden, boom, now she talks, and she talks crazy and says crazy stuff. And it's like, are you crazy the other way now? So it's like, and I'm joking, because it's obviously not the case, but I mean, she'll be talking to herself and really, really assertive, and which she wasn't. She was really, I thought she's going to be the wallflower. She's going to be the one under the shadow of Adriana. Adriana's going to be the one calling the shots, the older one.
Yeah.
And Riley would be the one that just kind of does what she's told. Okay, point me in a direction and I'll do it, because I don't want to be left out. Yeah. And then all of a sudden, boom, she just totally abandons that. Yeah. It's like, so how did that happen? So to that I say, so much for personality.
Yeah. Being
who you are, as much as how you interact with life and the influences of life around you. Not just people, but things as well.
So where does well, okay, so let me ask it like this. What part does personality play in your experience with God, in being a Christian? Positive. We'll talk first about the negative. does your personality, or can your personality affect your relationship with God negatively?
Well, now we're going into this realm that, is difficult to actually talk about because in my thinking, you have to define, you have to have a clarity of what we're talking about when we talk about personality
Yeah.
in order to be able to answer that question. And so it really depends if we're talking about personalities, it's just who I am, or if we're talking about personality from the standpoint of where I really feel it's this fluid thing,
Okay.
that can be
Let me
changed.
give you an example then, because and I can actually take one from your own life. You told me this story about when you first came to church, the church you actually received Jesus into your heart in Tucson. When you first gave your life to Jesus, you said you came in, and one of your first impressions was you were seeing all these other people worshiping God, and you were like, I could never do this. So there was something in your personality that was kind of immediately resistant to what was going on and what people were doing.
I so that's what I'm talking about is that, see, that could be called personality, but the issue was it was the fact that they were worshiping. It was so unusual to me. The idea of worshiping, lifting their hands and worshiping, that I couldn't make the connection of worshiping and the environment of a church service, but yet I did do that,
Yeah.
at concerts.
Uh-huh.
I mean that and more.
Yeah.
I was front row. I was right up there, screaming and yelling my head off with everybody else. I remember it's weird, but I know it's weird, and I fully admit I was weird. But I remember I went to a bar. Obviously, I wasn't saved. I went to this bar called the Wildcat in Tucson, and
Of course, it's called the Wildcat.
of course it's called the Wildcat. And so there was a group there playing. Now it's a bar, but it's a fairly big one. I mean, it's a kind of nightclub size. It's not huge, but it's fairly big. And so there's quite a group of people there. Quite a number of people there, and I couldn't see. And so it was kind of the way they had set it up was kind of semicircle, and so the speakers were more kind of on the outsides of the band. So they kind of went around like this, and the stage was a little further back. And so I'm looking around. I can't see the band. I can't see anything. I thought, well, screw this. And so I climbed up on the speaker stack, and I just sat up on the speaker stack. And and I'm there, and I'm having a great time. I mean, because it's not like I can't let go.
Yeah.
And just abandon myself to the environment. And so it wasn't that it wasn't in my personality to do that. It was that I couldn't connect with that in terms of what they were doing,
Right.
Versus what I was doing. I saw those as two independent things. Now, because I've done both, I know that they're exactly the same thing. That excitement and that all that goes into it. Like it's like people who say I'm a quiet person, and I always laugh about it, and I say, yeah, but I bet you, let me push your buttons.
Yeah.
Let me get you mad, and let's find out if you're still a quiet person.
Yeah.
And I find that usually people who say they're a quiet person, when you get them worked up enough, they're the worst. They're the worst. They're not quiet people. They only want to be perceived as being quiet people.
Right.
And so they this is who they are, and there may be a disposition to that, predisposition.
So we're just
where
talking
they're
about
comfortable.
we're talking about comfort. Yeah, I was just
Yeah.
going to say that. We're just talking about comfort zones then.
Yeah. So I think a lot of that isn't so much what we are as much as what we're comfortable with.
Okay.
And that's probably bang. I think
Yeah.
that just hits the nail right on the head right there. What we're comfortable with.
Yeah.
And so if we're talking about that, and we're talking about positives and negatives, then absolutely it can be both positive and be negative. But it's the luck of the draw. There's no way to actually decide which thing is positive, which thing, because you may have attributes of your comfort levels, your personality that will gel with Christianity, and that'll make Christianity easier for you. But then there might be parts of your comfort level that don't gel, and then that's going to make it difficult
Just
for
totally
you.
depending on the person.
Yeah, depending on the person and depending what their comfort levels are with these particular things.
Right.
And those will be predisposition things. The predisposed comfort levels in various areas.
Right. So what's the problem we're dealing with when we talk about personality? Whether it's pliable or whether it's permanent. Where does the problem exist? And so, in other words, like Like, when somebody says that's just the way I am, that's just the way I am.
Yeah.
What is it they're actually saying?
Well, what they're really saying, pause, think. What the truth is, it's not what they're saying or even what they're thinking. What the truth is they don't want to change.
Yeah.
That's
an issue of the will.
The truth. That's the truth of it. They may not believe that. It's like, I've mentioned this on a number of occasions, but there was a sister in church who she was testifying one time, and she had mentioned how, that she was giving a testimony about some things and was talking about exercise. She had mentioned exercise, and she says, I didn't get that gene. My sister got that gene, but I didn't get that gene. And I thought, oh, too bad for you. You're going to die at 60 years old. I'm thinking in my head, because you can't exercise because you don't have the exercise gene. So you were only built, God only created you to live 60 years then, because you can't exercise. That's not, it's a predisposition. You don't like exercise.
Yeah.
And so which is fine. But if you go exercise, then you'll find that you have the you do have the gene.
Right. Yeah.
Because it's not a gene.
Yeah.
It's not a gene. There's no such thing as an exercise gene. And so you do have the gene.
Right.
You just don't want to exercise.
Yeah.
And you don't want to break through in that area. But calling it a genetic issue or personality issue, that frees us from having to even try. So really what it is it's a good excuse for lazy people when it comes right down to it. People who don't want to change.
Yeah. Let's see. We've got another one here. Thoughts on... Okay. Thoughts on personality tests. You know them.
Yeah.
You know what they are.
Yeah.
So
I love them. They're wonderful. I love taking them.
They're fun, actually.
And they nail me every time. They absolutely nail me, even the things I don't like.
I hope that... Hang on one second here. So I should be wearing my glasses, man. This is horrible. Golly.
Okay, I can read it.
I can't.
Okay, so the questionnaire can't see the questions.
I have my glasses.
So I can see them, though, and I do have my glasses. So thoughts on personality tests such as Enneagram. The Enneagram bases your personality on your basic fears, example, fear of abandonment, lack of resources, etc. My thoughts on that. So I want to go back to this because Kara asked the question last time that I really want to talk about.
Okay. Do you want to do that?
Are you going to
first?
do? Oh, you have it.
Yeah, I was gonna ask.
Oh,
yeah.
you were going to ask about
yeah.
it. Oh, okay. So my thoughts on tests. Well, like I just said, I love them. I love them because they really are accurate. They're very, very accurate. And this is the big problem: is that some people they take these tests and they go, that's not me. It didn't work. and the people who are
total denial.
The people who know you are going, come on. It's you to the T.
Yeah.
You're the only one who doesn't know who you are. Everybody else does, but you don't.
Yeah.
And the truth is when it comes to this is just I'll throw this out there because I got to do it every time that I think about it because I want to try to help as many people as I can. Other people know you better than you know yourself. End of story. I don't care what it is. Even if they only met you 5 minutes ago, they know you better than you know yourself because we spend most of our time lying to ourselves. That's a big problem. It's a big problem because of sin, because of ego, because of pride, because of all these things. We spend the vast majority of our time lying to ourselves, which is why I spend the vast majority of my time in my mind telling myself I'm lying to myself. Because I've got to keep telling myself that so I don't forget. That I'm a phrase that doesn't come out of my mouth. I'm not like that unless I'm joking. It's the only time I ever say that. The other day, there was one of the thumbnail smirks on my face. Oh, it's at the end. So if you ever watch any of our services now and you see the end come up for the subscribe, it's got a look on my face, and I laughed, and I said, and all the guys were in the room, and I said very, very seriously, I said, that doesn't look like me at all, and everyone busted up laughing. Because it was exactly the kind of face that I would make. Exactly. I mean, to the T. It might as well have been a picture of me. And so you just have to learn, that these things are true. And so when you take these tests, you should be taking these tests so you can discover things about yourself. You shouldn't be taking these tests so you can find out whether or not the tests are accurate.
Yeah. Okay, so I'll actually ask the question now since Kara's jumped in. She basically asked the question. She was talking about her kids and watching them grow up with certain personality traits and develop. And, I've experienced that as well as a father. Any parent can see that. You start seeing the personalities develop in your kids. The question, and I hope I'm asking this correctly. I did write it down, but I hope I'm asking it in the way that you wanted to ask it, Kara. But she asked about, does your personality determine your calling, or is your calling based off of your personality? Like, does God give you?
Does it play in?
Does it play into?
Yeah, and she also mentioned, which is the other thing I wanted to throw in there, why I remembered the question is because she mentioned about encouraging it. Should we encourage these things?
Yeah.
And I have an answer, and I've been thinking about this ever since the last podcast, and I love doing this because I love throwing a wrench in the common ways of people thinking about things, especially when I know I'm right. My suggestion is it's not bad to encourage your kids to do things, that are within their personality. But if you ask any of my kids, one of the things that I very much did with my kids is encourage my kids to learn how to do things that they were not comfortable with it. So in other words, I was not just looking for whether or not it would suit their personality. In fact, I did the opposite. Things that didn't suit their personality, things that I knew about them in terms of their personality, I would push to get them over that. Oh, I'm not comfortable with this. To do things that they were not comfortable with. And I'm still doing this to this day. My daughter and I were on the outreach. We were on the outreach, and she's older. I don't think she would want me to tell her age. Older. She has kids, and she's married, and they're my grandkids. So she's older. But anyway, so we're on this outreach, and there's the guy. He's playing this track. There's a guy up there. We're out there just witnessing to people, talking to people on the corner. It just happens to be on the same corner. There's a guy with a PA, and he's singing to these tracks. And so he plays this track, and the track is a song that my daughter Clarissa says, "Oh, the memories," because she recognized the track, and I said, "You remember the words?" And she goes, "Oh, some of them." And I go, "Come on, let's go." And she's like, and I go, "No, you're going to go sing the song." And she goes, "Well, I don't really know it. I don't know all the song. I just know some of the words." And I said, "Well, just freestyle it then. Just fill it in with whatever, because you know the song. Let's do this." And so she went for it. And we went over there, and she could only remember the chorus, and so she just kind of through the whole thing. But it was and then she would just sing a little bit of it. But it's like, that's my girl. I want to do this. I love to see people, and I do this with everybody. I don't just do it with my kids. I do this with everybody. When I see somebody struggling with something because they've got a personality disorder, I want to fix that. I want to fix that disorder. I want to help them to overcome. And sometimes people are afraid to preach, and I'll push them, and I can tell when they're going to, there's a time, I can tell whether, no, this has gone from, they know this is no longer about their personality. They're just flat stubborn. I won't push any further with that, because I'm not going to fight against stubborn. There's no point fighting against stubborn. When somebody's fighting against my trying to help them, then I stop. But as long as they're kind of rolling with it, then I'll let them roll with it. And so I really do encourage you to challenge your kids as they're growing up. Challenge them in areas of their lives where they're not comfortable. Challenge them in that so they can. And the reason for this is because when they get older, they will have what we call a more well-rounded personality. Is that will be the result. And so how that fits into spiritual gifts is I don't think spiritual gifts are related to personality at all. I don't think they are. They're just callings. And we did mention that last week. We talked about Moses and his calling. We talked about the what was the other one we mentioned last week? Who else's calling did we mention? Somebody who didn't want to do what God called them to do. Gideon? Yeah, Gideon in the wine press. Yeah. And so those kinds of things. And so, yeah, spiritual gifts are not, they're not personality driven. They're calling driven, which goes back to the
Yeah,
idea of calling.
I was going to ask. I mean, can you really be
Yeah.
comfortable right away with spiritual
Nothing.
gifts? You're always
None of it.
stepping out of yourself. It's
None of
always,
it.
yeah, it's beyond it. That's beyond human comfort most of the time. Referring back to personalities being formed by influences around you as a child, is it safe to say that a personality can be controlled?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. That's what I'm talking about.
So we're answering the question to
yeah.
the podcast topic here.
Yeah. That's
Pliable or permanent?
Yeah, that's actually what I'm talking about. And so really, the whole idea of the podcast title in my mind, is which one are you going to accept?
Yeah.
That really is what it comes down to, because it is pliable. Without a shadow of a doubt, personality is pliable. I was thinking about the scripture, because this is the one that most people tie to personality. Can a leopard change his spots, or the Ethiopian his skin? And so you say, see, well, that's a personality. People they are the way they are. You can't change the way they are. Well, that's a big problem, because the very following part of that verse, the very next part is, so the sinner to turn from wickedness.
Yeah.
So I guess you're screwed.
Yeah, we're all screwed.
We're all screwed.
Yeah.
Is that it's because what he's talking about is he's talking about our natural bent or our natural tendency. And that's the idea. You can't just change these things. You can't change these natural bents or natural tendencies. But if they are unchangeable in every way, if it's just the way you are, then you are screwed.
Yeah.
Because you won't be able to change things that need to be changed so that you can be saved and go to heaven, or be fruitful, be productive as a Christian.
Yeah.
And the truth is these are the kinds of things I hear a lot. I hear a lot of people say, I can't do this and I can't do that and I can't do the other thing. And in my mind, because like I said, I don't fight stubborn, and usually this comes from stubborn people, is they're telling me this so that I'll stop pushing them, and so it's like, okay, hey, listen, no problem. I'll stop pushing you, but you will not fulfill the will of God for your life.
Yeah.
End of story. You just won't.
Yeah. Yeah. So, okay. So give me some examples of this that we're going to talk. We're going to kind of go in and, take this a direction in a second, but the last kind of question on that specifically, the idea of stubbornness, is give me some examples of personality traits. You mentioned preaching, obviously. So there's a very specific act going on there, right? In order to get up and preach in front of people, you're having to automatically step outside of your comfort zone. Can you give me some other examples of that? Like things that people you're going to face as a Christian, you're going to maybe that are naturally challenging to the human personality in Christianity?
Well, it's just the idea of being able to change, because we're supposed to become like Christ.
Yes.
And well, you're not going to do that, are you? Without lots of hard work, And so if you identify what you call personality traits, if you identify a difference in your personality than Christ, what are you going to do? You're going to say, I'm not going to become like Christ. I refuse.
Yeah.
I refuse to become like Christ, because it's not who I am.
Yeah.
It's like, good luck with that. And this is the thing that's so puzzling to me about this. And it goes back to the idea I've been mentioning in the last few, the idea of emotion. Is that people really do allow themselves to be driven by emotion. And I really do believe that there's going to be two groups of people in hell: people that are overly emotional and people that are overly intelligent.
Yeah.
Those two people they're going to be in hell. They're not going to get saved. They're going to go to hell. And you say, well, is that like a predestination thing? No, because when you decide that you're just going to remain an intellectual and you are going to refuse to consider anything other than what you can understand intellectually, you can't be saved, because you can't get saved on an intellectual basis. It's not possible. You're not going to be intellectually convinced. We've been talking about this. Jordan Peterson is like that. Here's a guy who's struggling with the idea of Christ. He's a very intellectual individual. And I watched a podcast that was done between him and another guy. And the guy who he's talking to is an intellectual Christian. And he's coming from the intellectual point of view and trying to use all this symbology and making Christianity look like it is is just mystical. That it's exclusively this mystical thing, that the only way you can embrace it is by understanding the mysticism. And Jordan Peterson's agreeing with him. Yeah, I agree with this. I agree with this. And I'm listening to that. I'm going, no, that is not it. That is not it. It is not it by a million miles. That is not it. He was describing the virgin birth and the mention of the virgin birth. And basically, because of the guy's background, he's into Mary, and so Mary's like the as they always like to use the word, archetype of salvation. It's the virgin, that produces godhood. And so it's all this kind of stuff, and it's like I'm listening to this, I'm thinking that will not save a single soul. Even if people, and it's funny, the number of times that while he's talking very boldly when he's talking about symbols, but then when he goes into the idea of the facts of Christianity, he waffles and he goes, I know some people aren't going to like what I have to say. And it's like, gee, you didn't say that before when we were talking Mr. Intellectual stuff, And so that if you and so I was so moved by watching this video that I told my wife, I said, I wish I could see Jordan Peterson. I wish I could just have a meeting with him. And so I actually wrote an email to his business address. And I said, listen, I want to talk to you. If there's any possible way I can talk to you, because it's not that hard, okay? Jesus said you have to become like a child to enter the kingdom.
Ah, yes, interesting.
Yeah. And so I'm thinking, this is so easy.
Yeah.
All this deep mystical he's talking about, it's so hard, and he's some of the things he said, I don't even know what that means if you could actually believe in Christianity. What would that do to a person if they really did genuinely believe in Christianity to the fullest extent of it? And I'm listening to this, I'm going, that's what I do.
Yeah.
And you know what it did to me? It woke me up.
Yeah. So why is it so hard? Why is it so hard?
When you're an intellectual?
Yeah. Why?
Because when you're an intellectual, you're holding yourself responsible for everything. It's your fault for everything because you're the intellectual. This is the difference between the intellectual and the emotional. The intellectual, everything is my fault. I have to fix this. I have to make this work. And so the idea of embracing, and that may not be the right word, but embracing a perfect God and getting that. Now all of a sudden you're responsible for that.
Yeah.
You're responsible for what all that means. That means every minor detail of your personhood that isn't right is your responsibility to fix. Pooh, it's over. You're just going to blow up. There's no way you could actually, think about it from that standpoint.
Yeah.
But when you become a little child, now it's a whole nother story. It's as like, you can be forgiven.
Yeah.
When you're wrong and you're learning and you learn and that's it. But see, now the emotional person blames everything on everybody else. Yes. So it's completely the opposite. So the emotional person says, it's not my fault. Yeah. It's their fault. It's this fault. It's society's fault. It's everybody but me.
Right.
Everybody but me. And so the emotional person will not take personal responsibility for themselves. And so because they won't take personal responsibility for themselves, they can't be saved either.
Yeah.
Because no. The only way they could be saved is if they're already predestined to be saved. And so so that's why I say the way that I'm saying that is the whole idea of personality. When your personality becomes so determined in your thinking, this is me, this is my personality, and nobody's going to change me. You are now going to disqualify yourself from being able to be a Christian, because you cannot be a Christian and either blame yourself for everything and take responsibility for all transformation 100% to yourself, and you also cannot put 100% transformation on something else. There has to be that cooperation.
Yeah. Okay. So lean into that a little bit more. Talk about being a child as an adult, because I'm gonna. Kay, you asked a question here. If intellectuals are at risk of hell, does it make sense that you can't look at anything regarding Jesus in a logical way? So now talk about more.
Say that again.
Okay. So if intellectuals are at risk of hell,
No,
does
no.
it?
I thought you were telling me something else off of that.
No. So I was going to basically try to get you to focus a little bit more
okay.
on the
I got
balance
you.
between
I
the
got
two
you.
so that you can see.
Okay.
Because this will answer your question, Case. So
Okay.
just maybe just talk about the balance. What's the becoming like a child as an adult? What's the balance between the two? You're not too far
Becoming as a
emotional.
child-
You're not.
Okay, becoming as a child, really, when it comes right down to it, is very simple. It's becoming. What's the difference between an adult and a child? What would you take a wild guess? Just a quick guess.
Age.
Okay, age. But what does age mean?
Experience.
Experience.
Yeah.
Okay. So what does that mean when you don't have any experience?
You have to learn.
You have to learn.
Yeah.
You have to learn.
You're a learner.
When you have experience, you don't need to learn anymore.
Yeah.
And that really is the difference between an adult and a child.
Mhm.
Is an adult thinks they know everything. A child knows they don't know everything.
Okay. And so is the intellectual off balance somebody who knows everything?
Well,
Or thinks they knows everything?
well-
Probably a better way to say it.
if not thinks they know everything, thinks that everything is knowable. And all it's a matter of, I just need a book or a mentor, somebody to just teach me this, and it'll be good. I can do it.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter what it is, I can do it. But when it comes to becoming like Jesus, that's not possible, and that's why that becomes a big problem. And so, are you were starting to bring this into this, Brittany's comment, or no? Because
No.
you actually, it sounded like you were actually quoting it, because she said, "Do you think speaking things into your kids, he's going to be musical, or he's really good at science, or whatever? Does that impact personality, positive or negative?" I thought you were actually starting to read that.
No. I was reading Kay's question.
Okay. So because that idea, it's not a question. It's not a question of you can get really crazy with this kind of stuff, and it can become a thing where you're afraid to do anything. You're not going to go wrong. Like I said, challenge your kids to a broad spectrum existence.
Yeah.
That's the best thing that I can tell you is that's why, for me, for my family, why it's been so good. I like my son plays, every instrument known to man. Just he just loves it. He decides he's going to play the sax and then play sax in song service about 3 months later.
Yeah.
Well, the reason why he did that is because when he was 9 years old, I pushed him. And then he learned how to play drum, and he could keep a beat. And I said, "Cool, you can keep a beat. Now you're playing song service from now on." And that took him about 2 months.
Yeah.
It wasn't that he was good. It's that he knows that he's going to get better by playing.
Yeah.
And so he just plays. And when your kids can get that kind of comfort that, hey, listen, if I just put my mind to it and I just start doing some stuff here, I'll get better as time goes on. And it doesn't matter. I'm going to make a few mistakes along the way, but I'm going to get better as time goes on. You're challenging them. And so it's better to challenge them. He's going to be musical, or he's really good at science, or those kinds of things. I wouldn't put I wouldn't push that too hard. Because what if they don't like it? Kind of the way I do it, and my present day experience with working with my grandkids is kind of the second go around of how I raised my kids, with a little bit of tweaks, for further perfection. With my grandkids, as soon as I can tell they're not interested in something, okay, it's time to change gears. Because they're not interested in it. They may come back to it, but at least they've had exposure to it. Like, I don't know what's happening now, but Adriana was really excited about wanting to play the keyboard, and then she started playing. Couldn't, I want to go back. I want to go back. But that was about 2 or 3 weeks ago, and I haven't heard any progress since.
Yeah.
And so it's like, maybe she's not interested, maybe she is, but at least she's had that exposure. And that's the important part, is the exposure. It's not whether or not she wants to go on to do something with it. It's the exposure to be able to say, okay, I didn't think I could do this. I did it. I actually was able to do it, and I'm getting better at it.
Yeah.
Okay, now fine. You can move on to something else. It doesn't have to be, where they go. And so that, I think, is a better understanding, because then you're helping. Because what we're kind of drifting into when talking about personality and pliability is what I'm really kind of talking about is how you can maintain the idea or the thinking of being pliable. Like my sons, Elliot, had really singular focus on guitar. I mean, really super singular focus on guitar for a long time. He can play drums well, but he was like, I want to learn everything there is to know about learning guitar, and really streamlined and really focused. But it didn't keep him from saying, I want to learn sax. because it wasn't like, I found the thing that I'm really good at. I'm going to hide here. And that's the thing that I would be more concerned of is it's just not, because it's what people do, and it's sad. There are people in life today that are not doing well. They're not doing well because they live in the one thing they know how to do. They've just this one thing that they're able to do. They never really get any better at it. It's just what they can do. And so they just live there. And they won't go out of there. They won't go somewhere else. They won't do other things. They just kind of sit there and become mediocre people with they're what we call one-trick ponies, because they think this is who I am, and they think that that's what it means to have a personality.
Yeah.
So you put all this stuff together, and you can see the negativeness of personality becoming something that we think of as being pliable, or being permanent.
Yeah.
Because even now, at 60 years old, I toy with the idea. I'm thinking, I started. Elliot, my son, gave me a bunch of tracks from these various groups because I was looking for something. I'm so busy now that it's to the point to where my brain doesn't shut off anymore. It just keeps running at high speed. And so I said, I've got to find some music that I can listen to that is so complex that I can't think, that I just get lost in the complexity of the music. And so my son gave me some real complicated, mostly guitar stuff, but gave me that. And it did exactly what I wanted. I'm listening to it, and I find myself just kind of, bobbing my head to the beat and tapping my hand or my foot, and it's what I want because I need my brain to shut off. I need rest. I'm actually going to preach a sermon about that because we need rest. We can't just go. Yeah. We have to rest. And so, but while I was listening to it, I thought I could learn how to play like that, and I thought maybe I will. And I'm thinking, okay, how can I work this in? And I'm thinking it would be cool. And I'm getting these visions in my mind of playing in a band and being able to play music like that. And I'm actually starting to get a vision for it. I'm thinking about and seeing myself doing these things. And I'm thinking, I could do this, and that's what I want other people to experience. I want literally everybody to be able to experience that. Where some people, they would hear something like that and they would say, oh, I could never do something like that. I'm too old. I don't have musical ability. I don't this, I don't that, I don't have this, I don't have the other thing. But there's something really satisfying in life when you hear or observe things and your kind of go-to is, maybe I should do that. Maybe I should try that. Because you don't look at it as, oh, that's only for superhumans. That's only for people of a certain personality type. Or that's only with people with certain gifting,
Yeah.
And that's really, why I was inspired the last one as a good topic to talk about, because I really, being a pastor and having been a pastor in England, in Gibraltar, and living in Spain, and having a few other places in the United States that I've been, and running into people like this, and even here in our church right now, of people that they've, they're just, they're in their 30s. They're in their 30s and they're just waiting to die. They're literally just waiting to die. They've done all they're going to do in life.
Yeah.
They're not going to do anything more. They may have more kids, and they may make more money, and they might buy a bigger house or have a bigger car, or a better car. But they are never going to be anything more than what they are right this second. 30, 60, 80.
Yeah.
They're going to be the same. Their life's over. They're just waiting to die.
Yeah. And
I look at this and I think, you're in your 30s and you're doing this to yourself. I'm in my 50s, my late 50s. I know what you're going to be like when you get to be my age. You're going to wish you were dead.
Yeah.
You're going to wish that you could die, because you're going to look back and you're going to go, 10 years has gone by and I've done nothing with my life. I've gone nowhere. I haven't grown. I'm still as angry a person as I've always been. I'm still as frustrated about things as I always have been. And it's because, well, this is me.
Yeah.
This is me, and it's just the way that I am. And it's a lie. It's not. It's not who you are. It's not who you are by any stretch of the imagination. It's not who you are.
So you've talked about stubbornness. You mentioned it a couple times. What, I mean, if you think about everything you're talking about right now, the nature of being a Christian, being a real Christian, there's a scripture in Romans 8 when Paul says, for whom he foreknew, he also predestined to be conformed to the image of his Son, that he might be the firstborn among many brethren. That word conformed is literally talking about being fashioned. Mm-hmm. It's talking about being fashioned. Brian brought up the scripture last week in 1 Corinthians. He says, this is Paul again saying, I've become all things to all men, that by all means I might win some. So if you're talking about becoming as a child, and Brittany's asking questions about from a parent's perspective towards a child, when you become as a child as a Christian, who's fashioning you? Obviously, God's fashioning you and shaping you into something, right? Now the question is, how can you?
Well, honestly, I will disagree with that.
What do you mean?
I will disagree with that thought that, well, obviously God is fashioning you.
Should be.
Well,
no, my question is, okay, hold on. So my question is about stubbornness. Can you be stubborn and be a Christian?
I'll leave that question to God. I can't answer that question in terms of, because what you're saying is, can you be saved? Can you go to heaven?
Okay, I'll ask it like this then. Can you be stubborn and be effective Christian?
No, absolutely not.
Okay.
No, you will not be effective. You will not, because you'll always be on the verge of nervous breakdown.
And where does that effectiveness lie, or lack of effectiveness lie? What's the result of that lack of effectiveness?
Well, you said it, stubbornness. I mean,
like, how does that play out?
Okay, so in
other words, if somebody's stubborn, and you could say, here's the result of being stubborn, and then somebody could look at their lives and say, wow, I'm experiencing that every day. What is that? What are they experiencing? What is somebody that's stubborn? What's a stubborn Christian experiencing?
Okay.
Or not experiencing?
So one of my favorite lines of stubborn, people use this for the word bitter, but I think it's more generally stubborn, is I'll break it down a little further. Is the idea, that, and it's something that has stuck in my mind for ever since I heard it, is the idea of someone drinking poison and waiting for someone else to die. And what I mean by that is if you think about the logic, or obviously the lack of logic in that you're going to drink poison, and it's somehow going to adversely affect somebody else. There's not even a thread of rationale in that at all. I mean, that is utterly insane, irrational thinking, that you could do something to harm yourself and it is somehow going to be beneficial to you because of the hurt it's going to cause somebody else. And so this is what I mean. This is what I'm talking about, is the idea of, because this is what is stubborn. This is why I won't fight with somebody who's stubborn. Because once somebody has become stubborn, what they have said is, I have no boundaries as to the damage that I'm willing to do to myself in order to prove to you that I'm right. And that's a very scary place to live.
Right.
It's a very, very scary place to live. Is there are people that I personally have been trying to work with, that they've reached this point. They're going to show me by hurting themselves that I'm wrong. And they're going to show me. You'll see. There are people whose lives are a mess right now. And it's there was one particular instance where this was actually verbally spoken. One day God is going to vindicate me, the person who's hoping that I come to my demise. This is just the way they think, is one day God is going to vindicate me and prove that Pastor Ford is wrong. And it's like, if you just sit down, and just, take that into the laboratory Let's not let any emotion get involved in this all. Let's just get this into the laboratory and start making some tests on it. We're going to find zero rationale in that. Zero.
Yeah.
Because even if it was true, how does that benefit you?
Yeah.
You know, even if exactly the way you thought things were going to play out played out the way exactly that you thought, how is that going to help you as a Christian? It's not going to help at all. It's totally 100% wrong-headed in its essence, in what it is. And so this is the problem with stubbornness. Stubbornness is always has at its core, I'm right and everyone else is wrong. You know, and the way the stubborn person tries to get around this is by surrounding themselves with like-minded stubborn people, you know, or foolish people that are willing to speak without knowing all the facts, you know, and just kind of jump in. And so this is usually, and so if you want to know whether or not you're a stubborn person or not, you look at where you gather your information from. You will find that the majority of the information you gather from people who are, the word is impetuous. There are people that just jump to conclusions. They say things without thinking it all the way through. They just say, no, this is it. What you just told me, this is the answer.
Yeah.
You know, and you will surround yourself with people like that because they will say what you want to hear, because you will give them, you know, 5 seconds worth of facts, quote unquote facts. And then they'll give you their determination that you're right in this circumstance, and that's all there is to it. And that will be all you need to know. You won't need to know anything else. And that will become your habit of life. You will be the kind of person, it's what the Bible talks about when it talks about people that are looking for teachers that will say what they want to hear, having itching ears. That's really what a stubborn person does. A stubborn person looks for people to say what they want to hear, so that they can be right.
Do you think that that's an easily identifiable thing for a stubborn person? Like they
It's
can
easily
look at their lives and go, yeah, that's true.
No, it's easily identifiable for people who know them.
Yeah.
But it's impossible for them to
know. So how does the stubborn person identify that they're stubborn or not?
They have to listen to the people around them. See, so you can see where the cycle.
But if they've surrounded themselves with people that are taking, they're never going to get it.
No.
So how do they?
This is why I said. This is why I said what I said earlier about it. Obviously, God's going to change him.
Yeah.
That's not true.
Okay.
It's not true, because God uses other people to change us.
Yeah. I wasn't going to go. I was going to go back to that actually. Yeah. But that's not quite what I meant by it. I misspoke that way. But when you, so who is changing Pastor Ford's life as you're growing, as you're changing?
Everywhere.
Where is that coming from?
Everywhere.
Right.
Yeah, everyone and everywhere.
And so, what's the goal? What's the?
I mentioned in the sermon, and I'll leave it anonymous, although some already know because they heard me mention it in the sermon, and I got approval from the person that was saying it. Was that when I was having that conversation, guy texted me, "Look what you made me do."
Yeah.
Gave me a video of his wife crying. And said, I hope you're happy. Yeah. It's like he placed 100% blame on me for the fact that he did things and said things that made his wife cry.
Right.
Okay. Now, most people who would be in a conversation with somebody like that would say, you are a horrible human being. You are an absolute horrible human being. And that at best would just ignore them altogether. And at worst would probably say, oh, who do you, and go right after him. Well, what I did, because his response back to me when I said, real men don't make their wives cry. And he said, well, you've probably made your wife cry before. And I thought, well, of course I have. So let me rephrase that. And that's what I was thinking in my mind. But before I actually got to rephrasing that to him, I thought, when's the last time that I made my wife cry? Have I improved in this area of my life? Because yes, I have done this, but have I improved? And over the next 5 minutes or so, I'm sitting there and I'm thinking about it. And I'm thinking about it from the standpoint of, have I improved in this area of my life? Has my temper calmed down that I don't, yell at my wife and get her upset like that? Have I been, an emotion? Because I tend to be, intellectually oriented? Have I been an intellectual bully? Have I made her feel stupid on purpose? And I'm running through all the parts of my personality and thinking, has any of these things hurt her or made her cry? Have I been able to keep these things in balance? Have I been able to change sufficiently so that I'm not doing this? And after that, I thought, you know what? I'm going to call him and I'm just going to talk to him, because I want him to understand the process that I just went through. Because if he can go through that process, then he'll learn and he'll change. If I can get him to see this. And that's exactly what happened. I called him. I started explaining the situation to him. He started asking questions, and it was fine. Before that conversation, he was already done. He was going to leave the church. He was that was it. He's not coming anymore. I have no doubt that he was telling his wife that, and that's why she cried, that she's not going to be allowed to go to church anymore. And she's going to go with him to this new church and wherever they go. And she's knowing that he's insane. But yet I called him with the express purpose of hoping that I could help him, because he just helped me. He wasn't trying to help me. He wasn't giving me advice from the standpoint of a learned individual. It just happened to be something that came out in his rage, that came out during his rage. But because I've allowed myself to learn from all different points of view, from all different kinds of people, the truth is truth, no matter who says it. And that's the problem, is that some people, they don't love truth. And so that's really the core of stubbornness. So the question was asked: does stubbornness go along with defensiveness? Defensiveness is an indicator. The reason why people are defensive is because they don't want to be wrong. And so we try to defend. I mean, if you think about defensiveness, we're trying to defend ourselves against what? Nothing's attacking us. But we take it as an attack. We say, you're attacking my character. You're attacking who I am as a person by saying this right now. No. You're being exposed, but you're not being attacked. If your heart is open, nobody can ever attack who you are. If your heart is open to receive correction, you're not stubborn. And this is one of the things that I see. I was thinking about it, it's funny. I have a lot of sympathy for Jordan Peterson, because I look at him and I think, this guy's a really, really, really smart guy, but he tends to be a little, over emotional as well.
Yes.
And so I look at that. I think
I was going to write that down as one of my off-topic questions.
Yeah, that's a dangerous cocktail, to be that,
extremes,
to be, and I marvel at this, because I think I don't know anybody like that. I don't know anybody who's really intelligent and also very emotional. I know people that are really intelligent and, they go out this way. And then you've got other people who are really emotional. They go out this way. But here he is, is like Mr. Superbrain, and it's like, if we don't shrink these things down, you're going to explode, because there's nobody that can reach you, because you're of where you are, And so, that's probably why he says it's complicated all the time, because it's like, you don't understand what goes on in here.
Balance between those two.
It's complicated, because I see the emotional side of it. I see the intellectual side of it. That's probably why he's able to find the balance in all these things, of the difference between, communism versus capitalism, all those kinds of things. But again, a lot of these things, hopefully people can understand. We're talking about what we call personality. But they're not personality. They're just not personality. They're ways of thinking. Their ways of thinking. And this is why I felt that this would be a good topic for us to talk about, is because if you can understand that 90% of what we call personality is just simply ways of thinking, well, you've got 90% chance of changing something in your life.
Comfortable ways of thinking. That word comfort in the beginning was very, very key for that, because obviously that's, we all like to be comfortable. But being uncomfortable brings change. So now the question I have, we're actually at 8:04. So if you guys have questions that are off topic and you've been saving them, you can put those in now. We will if those come in the next few minutes, we'll field them. If not, then we will start wrapping things up. But the question I have now is, because obviously when you're a stubborn person, you can't necessarily identify your stubbornness by listening to the people around you, because you don't listen to the people you should be. You have surrounded yourself, right? So is it possible for a stubborn person to identify whether or not they've changed, or do change, do grow? Are able to stretch and bend and be pliable?
If I have to answer that literally, okay, in the time frame that you gave, which is a stubborn person able to do this? The answer is no,
Mhm.
because
So
you're a stubborn person.
Yeah.
So how will you ever see the
Yes.
change?
Yeah.
Because you're stubborn.
Okay.
You're
So
not going to change.
where is uh,
You have to stop being stubborn.
yeah.
That's
How do you okay? So we're finding kind of a contradiction then. So how do you stop being stubborn when you can't even see that you're stubborn? And how does a stubborn person know that they're stubborn?
uh, I have thoughts in my mind, but none of them really land. Um, there's a still small voice inside of every one of us.
Mm.
I believe this. Obviously, I'm not inside of everybody, but I believe this. There's a still small voice inside of every one of us that says, "You're stubborn." You could call it God.
Mhm.
I don't think it necessarily is. You could call it conscience. I would tend to believe that's probably more what it is. But the reason it's a still small voice is because you are ignoring it, and it doesn't have dominion in your life anymore. So that's what I would say is I would say that the only really way out for a stubborn person is to hear things like what we're talking about right now,
Yeah.
to hear that voice, to feel that conviction in their soul. But here's what the stubborn person does. I'm not convicted. I'm not convicted.
Okay.
I'm
Okay.
feeling condemned.
How about some?
And so then it just goes away again. So the indicators, it's not that the indicators aren't there. It's that people just they don't want to accept it.
Yeah.
They don't want to accept their fantasy is not reality. And so that's the big problem, and that's why. And the problem is that if your life is miserable, if you're not happy with your life, it's probably your fault. No. If you're not happy with your life, it's your fault.
Yeah.
That's all there is to it. It's your fault. It's not a question of you can't blame other people. It's your fault.
Yeah.
You're the one causing your misery.
Yeah.
You cause your misery because nobody can do anything to you that you don't allow.
Let's see here. Hang on one sec. In reference to not being, I'm sorry, Brittany, I don't understand your last question there.
Is it?
Okay, we'll start with the first question here. Okay. Kay asked, how do you stop being defensive if you're completely unaware?
Well,
How about this? Okay, let's do a personality test. Give us some homework, some personality
well,
test
not yet.
homework.
Yeah, homework. Personality homework, not personality test.
Yeah.
Well, this is the big thing, and we've talked about this. Karina and I have talked about this specifically. This is the problem: is you're never completely unaware, and that's not a true statement. And I've said this many times, Karina. You say you're unaware, but you're not unaware because you're defensive. When you're defensive, you go, no, it's like this.
Yeah.
How can you not be aware that you're, unless, which, I won't go there. I was going to make a woman joke, but unless it's possible to talk without hearing yourself speak. I mean, literally.
Words, but is it?
Words come out of your mouth.
It is possible.
But your ears don't hear what you just said. If that's physically possible to do, then you can be defensive and be unaware of it. But if you talk and your ears hear what you say, then your ears are going to tell you you're being defensive. And so it's not possible to not know that you're being defensive by simply what you say. The issue is denial. And that's really the issue is I'm not being defensive right now. I'm not being defensive right now. What you just said, listen, I'm not being defensive. What you said is wrong. Listen, I can prove it.
Yeah.
No, you're being defensive. Regardless of whether you're right or wrong, doesn't matter. You're being defensive. You might be right and being defensive, or you might be wrong and being defensive, but you're still being defensive. And so, Clarissa, you're being defensive, Karina. Can we take a commercial break so I can go laugh and then come back to this?
Oh, man. We should start getting some sponsors so we can take a commercial break. Have you tried Allstate Insurance?
So let's go to Brittany's. When I was a kid, I remember you telling me being stubborn could be a good trait to fall back on as a Christian if I could channel it correctly. Well, how I've described myself. It's not natural for us to tell ourselves over and over and over again that we're liars. It's not easy for us to program ourselves so that people that are in a rage can say things that we can learn from. And so that's what I mean when I talk about being stubborn. I mean about being stubborn from the standpoint of, you know what, I'm going to surrender to Jesus. I don't care what it costs me. That's the idea. It's really how it manifests itself is being stubborn against yourself. See, I don't know what it is when it comes to Christianity, but most people, even Christians, still have a hard time, but they can stand in front of a crowd of thousands of people and talk about how stupid they were before they got saved, but yet still think that they weren't that stupid after all. But they can do it. They can stand up and think, I did this, I did that, I did the other. These were stupid, they were ridiculous, they were everything, but still, generally speaking, can think, I'm not half bad, and I'm doing quite well, and it's like, no, you're a mess.
Yeah.
You're a mess. It's like, it's why I say these things when I preach. You're not important. Yeah. You're a mess. Because we get so caught up in this idea, and it's funny, it would be a good read for people to read, what's his name? Sigmund Freud, the works of, I'm just only scratching the surface of stuff with Carl Jung. But these, the whole idea, although there's a difference of opinion between these two people, but Sigmund Freud more, the idea that there's basically three people. There's the super ego, which is like he's the boss. And then there's the what the heck? Ego, just regular ego. And then there's the id, and the id being us. So we're the id, and in the ego and the superego. And the problem is I think we check out, for the most part as human beings, we check out as the id. We check out and then we just relinquish control to ego and superego to fight it out. And I think that's what causes people to become stubborn. I think that's the issue is that because these are all three us, of course, but we check out. And it's in checking out where we have the problem is we check out. We're not going to take responsibility for anything. And so we check out and then we let ego and superego run the show. And so much stuff is run by pride. If you think about it, because this is what makes the devil the devil. Okay, the devil isn't the devil because he's a fornicator. The devil isn't the devil because he likes smoking pot, or getting drunk. He's the devil because of pride. Pride is the worst sin that you can commit. There's nothing worse. And so what happens, though, is we become Christians, and what we call personality really is ego and superego in charge. And so what ends up happening is, as a result, is we can't change. We're not going to change. You guys don't know what you're talking about, blah, 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 stubbornness, defensiveness, all this stuff comes in because we're trying to maintain this level of good feeling about ourselves. That's our highest priority in life, is to have our feelings about ourselves at their peak. And the funny thing is that the only way you can achieve that is by realizing that you're a no good, stupid piece of dirt. Because until you know the truth about yourself, that is really who you are, you can never be at peace with yourself. It's not possible to be at peace with somebody who thinks that they're more than they are, And so that's, I think, where the problem really lies. Is from that standpoint. And so I think this is the problem of the stubborn person, is the stubborn person, they have to remain stubborn because of their fear of what will happen if they cave, because they have gotten this thing rolling. And so really the only solution, so the homework, if you want homework.
Yes.
The homework that I would give you,
stubbornness test,
is wake up in the morning and say, you're going to be wrong today. Every morning when you get up until next Tuesday, you get up and you say, you are going to be wrong today. You're going to say something stupid. You're going to think something stupid because it's who you are. Start there. Just start there. Just start with that. Okay? And maybe tell yourself that a few times during the day to remind yourself before you forget. And then when you do something stupid, say, I told you so.
Yeah.
Because you will.
Yeah.
You will. You'll do something stupid or you'll think something stupid. And when you get used to the idea that you're stupid, it won't be such a big deal anymore because you'll realize how stupid you really are. And you think, okay, yeah, I got the idea in theory that I'm stupid, but man, I'm really stupid. And it's who you are. It's the real reality of who you are. And you'll find yourself apologizing to everybody around you. Hey, listen, I'm sorry. I've been stupid. I really thought I was something, but you know what? I really am stupid, and it's okay. Because I've realized how stupid I am. And this is the thing is checking my mind, but I don't know where it happened from, where I got it from. Somebody was talking to me. Oh, I know who it was. Okay, it was a text conversation that somebody was having with me about things like this. And because I had to give them, I've nicknamed it now. I had to give them a slap down, and so when I did it, I knew after we got off the phone, I thought, it's gonna fly around. I think I'm just gonna slit my wrists and be done with it. And I thought, okay, I want to just be encouraging, and I'm sure that if they're listening right now, they'll say, no, I wasn't like that. It wasn't like that. No. But what I'm saying. And so the idea, the thinking, we started doing a little texting back and forth, and no, I'm okay, I'm fine, and asking some questions about some things. And then towards the end of it, it mentioned, the stupid part of the problem is that I make these mistakes. And I said, you have to make mistakes. You can't grow if you don't make mistakes. I said, people who don't make mistakes, they're not doing anything. That's why they don't make mistakes, because they're not doing anything. You can't do things and not make mistakes. And so it was like the penny dropped, and she goes, well, there's hope for me then. And I said, absolutely. And it was like sort of smiley face, kind of a joking thing. And it was like, that's what I need you to get. So when I've got to give you a slap down, it's because I want you to grow, and it's going to be something that's going to help you. Yeah.
Okay. So you started there in the morning. What do you do next? Where do you go from there?
Well,
questions
that's
asked.
Yeah. So what do you
already do that?
What if you already do that? you do stupid things. I would say that's not quite
maybe not stupid, wrong.
No. You're missing it. It's not, I know I do stupid things. Do you really know that you do stupid? I mean, that you are stupid. I mean, we are all stupid.
What if you're stubborn against being stupid?
Well, there you go. You won't be able to do that.
Yeah,
then. You won't be able to do the homework.
Yeah,
you won't be able to do the homework. because you go, this is ridiculous.
Yeah.
Oh, come on, for crying out loud. This is not how you have
You
to
just
be.
can't be okay with it.
Yeah, because you're stubborn.
Yeah.
And you really are stupid. Even if you don't want to admit it.
Yeah.
You really are. Because you're going to ruin your life.
Yeah.
You're going to ruin your life. But you have to be okay with being able to make mistakes.
Yeah.
You have to. You have to be okay with it. And the truth is people are, oh, well, what if you get to the point to where you're okay with making mistakes and you go, oh, the heck with it. What do I care? Listen, your psyche is not going to let you be just happy making mistakes all the time. And you're just going to make mistakes. You're going to think, oh, this is a great thing. No, you're not. You're not going to be able to do that. It will self-correct. The key is being able to be okay making mistakes, being okay to be wrong, being okay to be willing to be corrected, being okay understanding this is not a personality problem, but a character problem. We didn't really go into that, but that's what we kind of lump all that together.
Yeah.
Is that we're talking, more often than not, we're talking about character problems. We're talking about things that need to be fixed that are broken.
Go further into that. I actually have that written down.
Okay, so we can use that for another podcast. We can talk about that. And
character.
so okay.
Yes.
Well, so there we are. I would say so let that be the homework, and you'll see. I think you'll see if you really do it regularly during the day with the intention of saying that. And so that's we'll have to, okay, no more questions after this one. This is the last one. I'm going to answer it real quick. No, it's never, being wrong is never better than being right, but you're never going to be right all the time.
Yeah.
And that's what's important is you don't, it would be nice if you had the choice. Okay, I could be wrong right now, but I could also be right. And so I think I'll be right this time.
Well, you just shoot for the stars.
I'll just be right. I'll just be right this time.
Yeah.
So I'm going to say something right now because I'm right. Yeah. We don't have that luxury.
Yeah. That tactic doesn't work on a test.
Yeah. Okay. So we got 50 questions here. I think I'll get 3 wrong.
Yeah.
It's not an option.
You don't get a passing grade after that.
Yeah. It's not an option.
Yes,
you don't get to choose your grade.
Yeah.
It's not an option.
Got to be a learner. That's
so
cool.
So there we go. I think we've exhausted this.
Okay. Yes. Very good. Guys, questions were great tonight. As like we said, on topic, that's what we're aiming at. We want to help people. And so the biggest thing we can say, invite people to these. Tell people about the podcast, especially people that are new and have recently given their lives to Jesus, or people that you're working with, evangelizing with. Tell them about the podcast, invite them over, buy them dinner, and tell them, hey, let's watch this podcast together. Do something to get people to watch these podcasts, because there is resource here, and God is helping those that listen. And so we appreciate everybody being here. We will see you guys next week. Don't forget about our services. They are in person. They're not just on the live stream. So as Pastor Ford has said, so I can just quote him and I don't get in trouble for it. If you're being lazy, stop being lazy and come. Do what you got to do to get to church. Okay, God is here. God's with us. God's moving, and we do understand that there are some with actual limitations. If you're sick, you're not feeling well, please don't come. We will check you at the door. If you've got a fever, we will have to turn you away for the greater good. So we will see everybody next week, and have a good night.